Hello and welcome. I'm Professor Lucas, and today we'll be reviewing some information about reading. Be aware, no matter what answer you give to each question, you'll receive full points for all of them. We're going over this not to embarrass people or catch people with wrong answers, but rather to get you to think a little more deeply and consciously about how you read. I urge you to answer honestly and thoughtfully. For each question that comes up, think about whether you believe the answer to be true or false and why, and then compare your answer to the information I give. Our posture when reading can influence our concentration and comprehension. True or false? True. Does that mean you have to sit upright at a desk with perfectly straight posture? No. If you are too comfortable, you might fall asleep. If you are uncomfortable, you'll be distracted. Aside from that, it's more a matter of finding out what works for you than of whether your back is straight. Slow reading is careful reading. True or false? False. What about people who drive 10 miles under the speed limit on the highway? Is slow driving always careful driving? Do you think it would feel more natural, easier, and faster to walk across the room at your normal pace or taking tiny, slow steps? While it is true that slowing down is often effective at increasing comprehension, that doesn't mean that reading slowly is automatically carefully done. In addition, reading slowly can have some drawbacks. Your normal reading rate tends to be the one where you're most efficient in balancing comprehension. Slow isn't automatically careful or even effective. Slow reading can interfere with comprehension and enjoy it. Compare it to watching a movie in slow motion. It's hard to understand and to get into. The goal of reading is to make sure that our eyes look at every word on the page. True or false? This is false. While you do have to look at all of the words to read them, that shouldn't be your goal. Think about it. What's the job of a reader? If they're a good reader and successful, after they've read, what will they have accomplished? They will understand and remember. There are different levels of understanding, but that's the basic job. How can they accomplish this? They can be active readers, reflect, analyze, take notes, etc. Basically, being engaged in the reading and using strategies. If that's the reader's job, then what's the writer's job? To make the reader's job easy and rewarding while achieving your purpose effectively. It is often helpful to hold a pencil or pen while reading and be ready to underline, annotate, or take notes. True or false? True. You probably said yes, but why? Think about it for a moment. If you're marking the text or taking notes, it forces you to pick out main ideas worth noting and process information more times as you consider its importance. In addition, it gives you a more efficient document to study later. Instead of having to reread or search the whole chapter, you have a list of the most important information. With complex or academic reading, or anything you want to learn from or analyze, marking the text or taking notes is an excellent strategy. We should read at different rates for different purposes. True or false? This is true. An efficient reader speeds up for easier material and slows down for harder material. The results of many studies show that comprehension is negatively correlated with reading speed. So the faster you read, the less you comprehend, and the slower you read, the more you comprehend as a general rule. That doesn't have anything to do with how fast you read compared to others, but rather how fast you read compared to your natural reading rate. One researcher named Ronald Carver, after looking at dozens of studies examining reading rate and comprehension, concluded that there were 5 different rates or speeds at which people read. The 5 different rates that were identified depended on what readers were trying to do. If they were memorizing, they read the slowest, at an average of 138 words per minute. Each rate is faster than the previous. Memorizing is the slowest, learning is still slow, and then in the middle is your natural reading rate. You can read faster than that if you're merely skimming, and if you're scanning for particular words in a passage, you read the fastest of all. The students in the study had an average of 600 words per minute when scanning. Reading rates are a useful topic, so let's take a few minutes to look at them more closely. As was mentioned, there are 5 different reading rates, or speeds, with the middle one being your natural reading speed. This is how you read if you're not thinking about it, but you can speed up or slow down when you have different aims in mind. You might want to be able to remember the ideas better and slow down to the learning rate, or you might just want to get an overview and shift up to merely skimming the text. Having the flexibility to be able to read for a variety of purposes and to either quicken your pace or find an answer to a question, or to be able to read really thoughtfully and methodically at a slower pace when appropriate, can give you a lot better use of your study time. Why waste time reading something carefully you could have just skimmed? Why waste your time failing to get the information you need by skimming when you needed to read more slowly and carefully? Let's have a quick overview of some of the situations in which you might want to increase or decrease your reading speed before getting back to our reading facts trivia. When should you slow down your reading speed? That depends on the content of what you're reading. If it contains long and complex sentence and paragraph structure, you should slow down enough to enable you to untangle it and get an accurate idea of what the passage says. Another time to slow down is when running into unfamiliar or abstract ideas, or ideas that don't make sense to you. Look for applications or examples which will give them meaning. Don't give up until you understand, if that's your goal. Detailed, technical material often is better read at a slower pace as well. This includes complicated directions, abstract principles, and topics that you have very little background knowledge about or are unfamiliar to you. One of the most important times to slow down is when you're reading information that you need to remember thoroughly and in detail. The keys to memory are organization and repetition. Speed should not be a consideration here. Finally, you might slow down when you run into an unfamiliar word which is not made clear by the sentence. Try to understand it from the way it's used, then read on and return to it later. You may wish to underline the word so that you can find it again quickly. On the other hand, even more important for becoming efficient is knowing when to read faster. Once again, it depends entirely on the content and what you want to get out of it. If you're reading something simple that has very few new ideas or concepts, read faster. Move rapidly over the familiar and spend most of your time on the few unfamiliar ideas. Another type of content that makes sense to skim is unnecessary examples and illustrations. Do you understand already and not need the example? Skim it. These are included to clarify ideas. If you already understand the ideas being presented, scan them rapidly and move on. Along the same lines is elaboration and explanation that you don't need. Broad, generalized ideas can be rapidly grasped via skimming as well. Once a bad reader, always a bad reader. Reading habits can't be changed once you set them as a kid. True or false? False. It may be hard to change your habits, but it's definitely possible, with practice and knowledge of useful and effective strategies, both of which I'll be providing for you in this course. If we miss an idea or the pronunciation of a word in our reading, it's always important to go back before moving on. True or false? This one is false. It depends, but for the most part, you want to get the sense of things, and it's more important to stay in the flow than to make sure to get everything exactly perfect. Loss of comprehension is usually a result of reading too quickly. False. There are lots of reasons, but it's usually concentration issues or distraction, not reading speed. Let's finish up with some final trivia questions. How many words per minute does the average adult read? 95, 180, 250, 350, or 600 words per minute? The average adult reading rate is 250 words per minute, but the average for college students is 350 words per minute, since they practice more. But what if you did read at 95 words per minute? Is that a problem? The goal of reading is understanding and remembering. Therefore, it doesn't matter how slowly you read as long as you accomplish those twin goals. However, reading slowly can interfere with concentration, since it takes so long for anything to happen, and it all happens so slowly. In addition, It can interfere with time management if you need to spend too much time on assigned readings. What percentage of elementary age children will learn to read effortlessly? Only 5% will learn to read easily without much effort. Very few people have this skill. What percentage will learn to read easily once exposed to formal instruction? This percentage is higher at 20 to 30%, but it's still likely not as high as many people expect. On the other hand, what percent will have significant difficulties learning to read? The answer to that is 30 to 40%. It's nothing to be ashamed of and is quite common, especially in places where the reading instruction is not well funded or well done. Finally, what percentage will find learning to read one of the most difficult tasks they will face in their entire school career? 20 to 30%. This means that if you've always struggled with reading, you're not alone, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. However, it is a problem due to the fact that children who find reading frustrating or challenging tend to avoid it. And since they aren't reading, the students who enjoy reading are reading hundreds of thousands of pages, getting better and better and better, not to mention more knowledgeable, while those who struggled are stuck at the level they began at, with little desire to put in the time and effort required to improve. Another problem with these statistics is that academic self-image is shaped between the ages of 3 and 10. Children who take an early dislike to schoolwork or have doubts about their academic ability are at a serious disadvantage. However, the mere fact that you are here in a college classroom means that you're willing to put in the time and effort to become a good reader and a good writer, since you are now more mature and able to see what advantages they are. Note that you're considerably older than the 10 now, and what was true of you then might not be true of you now. So don't let your self-image as a bad reader hold you back now. In fact, one reason that people think they're bad readers is due to having a hard time studying. If you read the chapter but fail the test, you might think that you're a bad reader, when what is really going on is that you need better study habits. Learn more about studying efficiently and with less time invested for better results in an upcoming mini lecture, Schema Study Strategies. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this overview was helpful and illuminating. Please don't hesitate to contact me with any question you may have about the material. I am always happy to help.